Call of Duty Black Ops 7 is finally here, and today we're breaking down two things that everyone actually cares about: multiplayer and zombies. No campaign spoilers today, because the story breakdown, that's in a different video. Right now we're talking gameplay, map flow, TDK changes, the new equipment tech, and whether zombies is actually good. And after hours into this game so far, we got a lot of opinions. Let's jump into it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and today we have the whole crew here because we're doing our full Black Ops 7 crew review, and we're going to be breaking down both the multiplayer, and that includes modes, maps, guns, overall gameplay, and we have to touch on zombies because we are actually going to be having a story breakdown and review, but that will be separate and that will be more of an individualized video, and I have to kind of get the gloves on and see myself into whatever sewage and filth that is that game, but we have to kind of break down the multiplayer itself because I feel like most people that want to play COD are going to be jumping into the multiplayer first and kind of see whether or not that is worth jumping into. And so we're going to go through all these key components I mentioned earlier, and then we're going to give our overall good and bad through some key questions I've really created, and then give our overall kind of grade or overall rating on the multiplayer experience. So we're going to first jump into the game modes, and you know, Call of Duty is kind of the biggest thing that they've always done was create game modes. And they've always been solid when it comes to the different variability that you can have when you play the game. And they have some staples like Team Deathmatch, Domination, Search and Destroy, Hardpoint, Kill Confirmed, and Control. But then they also add in some new ones, which we all kind of expected. One of the key ones was Overload, which is a brand new mode where you're bringing a kind of a device to kind of like an EMP device to kind of blow up a certain section, going into enemy territory, and you have to try to stop them before you can actually do that, which is a pretty big one for a lot of people. But the biggest one is this Skirmish, which is a 20v20 game mode. It's large scale environments. You're gliding into combat every single time, and you know, they always try to give you, in the at least from the preseason, 10 plus core game modes that you can play, and including hardcore versions of those that kind of get us to have different ways to play, and that was always been a Call of Duty staple. So the big question that I'm thinking that we really have to answer here is, do Black Ops 7's game modes offer enough variety and fun at launch to keep the multiplayer feeling engaged, or do they just kind of fall short, and despite with all these different options? So let's start with Frank here. What do you think? Is your opinion that this actually gives you a lot of variety to play and it feels fun, or is it kind of falling short?
Yeah, I mean, you get a mix of, like what you just said, the similar modes that we've had, Team Deathmatch, etc., etc., you know, Domination, Hardpoint, Kill Confirmed. But these new game modes are kind of what piqued my interest to test out, see how well it is. And Overload, I actually liked. I liked Overload. I think it creates a nice new objective where you're picking up a device, and not instead of bringing it back, which we've seen plenty of times, you know, to your own side of the map with your own teammates, you actually have to go forward into your enemy, and there's 2 points at the enemy side of the map that you have to pick up the device, deliver it. And I do like that there's two halves to it, right? You get to a certain point, then it's halftime, you switch sides, and then you do it again. And I actually kind of liked how the game mode was set up. Now, there's certain maps that make the game mode a little bit, you know, brutal to play. Specifically, Nuketown is one of them. That you get on a good team, you can really overwhelm the opposing team and lock them down. But for the most part, I really enjoyed Overload. Problem is the other one, Skirmish. I did not enjoy Skirmish at all. It felt like a real good opportunity. The 20v20 felt like a big team battle match. Felt like closer to kind of those Battlefield War games. But it did not, and I think a big part of that is how you spawn in that, where you first start off on the ground and then afterwards you're constantly flying in with the fly suit, and it is just painful. I mean, guys are just flying all over the place, over the map. It's these bigger maps, but there's only 2 of them, right? There's not a lot of diversity with it. So you're getting the same type of game modes that you get originally from Call of Duty. They added 2 of them. One I think was a positive, one I think was a big negative, and it really stems from the way it spawns in. And one thing I do like, though, they did mix it up with skill-based matchmaking. There are some game modes that you don't have to play skill-based matchmaking. There's less of a focus on that. But you can also, if you're that skill-based matchmaking type, they still have those game modes for it. So to me, it's a kind of a hit and miss when it comes to the variety. You're getting the same, these 2 little mixes, but those 2 new flavors were very hit and miss. So I do think depending on what kind of game modes you like, if you just like original stuff, you'll be satisfied. But if you're looking for something new, I think it falls a little short.
Yeah, Haki, what is your opinion, man? I feel like we played a lot of multiplayer off camera, even during live stream, and there's a lot of different things you can do here, right? So what's your overall opinion, the good and the bad?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty standard, Call of Duty modes. And you're always gonna have that Call of Duty timing, the spawn camping. But all in all, I thought even the placements of the objectives were pretty good. Again, search and destroy, you got hard point domination. So I thought the game modes within the maps were set up pretty well. The new modes, I was 50-50 as well, but I was actually opposite of Frank, which is interesting. So Overload, I thought it was a little too basic. You gotta just grab the device and run into the point, or run it into the enemy base, which I thought was interesting, but a little too basic. I would hope that there would maybe be a time limit or a timer, even on the last point. Maybe there was actually one game where I played I think less than a 5-minute game. My team just got absolutely wiped. The enemy team first half got 5, and then next half immediately got 5, and we just got absolutely bombed on. So I was a little disappointed with Overlook. I like the concept. If they can change it at all, that would be pretty interesting. Skirmish I thought was pretty cool. I'm gonna definitely agree with Frank. The flying in really gets annoying, but I think, again, if they're able to change a little bit or add to these games, I think Skirmish definitely has a little bit more of an opportunity to become a better look. So 50-50 with the game modes, and a little bit of opposite of Frank. So I kind of liked Skirmish a little bit more.
Yeah, I will say this. Call of Duty has always been really good in their variant game modes, right? They always, I think, that was probably their best feature of almost all their games. They come up with game modes that I think are different, and a lot of other multiplayer games kind of copy them in the stuff that they made. Like, I feel like Gun Game being so simple is one of the more fun games to play. I know it's a gunfight's a 1v1 or 2v2, but I feel like I always enjoyed those types of fun arcadish game modes that Call of Duty has always created. And Overload, I thought, has potential. It's opposite. It's like an opposite capture the flag, essentially, is what you're doing. So like, it can get really sweaty. It can get really fun. Kill Order is like you're attacking HVTs on the other team. It's a Guardian from Halo. Like, it's very similar to that. So basic game modes that you see in most multiplayer games, but Team Deathmatch is still the OP, like the OG one that you really want to just play. But I am a little nervous about Skirmish because I like the idea of a bigger kind of game mode with more people in it. And Call of Duty actually, for a few years, because Battlefield was so trash for a while, that they were actually taking the lead on these larger skirmish game modes, which I was shocked by. That how they said, we're just going to copy Battlefield and take advantage of how bad they've been for years. And so now when Battlefield actually has some credence to it, you now made the worst version of a 20v20 game mode in Skirmish, where I like the idea of King of the Hill, where you're controlling points and the team that gets the most points in that span of time wins. But the fact that you have these like flying squirrels just flying all the way across the map on those gliders, there really isn't much reason for spawns anymore. Like, because you're just spawning and you can just get to the other side of the map, and there's no barrier, right? You're essentially just automatically waking up and getting killed. And I feel like they should have even had made the maps bigger. Like, if they made the maps bigger and you had the ability to do that, then I can understand them having that as a spawn point. But you're not even spawning on teammates. You're just spawning in the air, right? So you're kind of losing that whole squad kind of format that they actually had in previous COD games. So you've actually negated the progress you made on these vehicle-based game modes that you've actually created, which I think is really a detriment to that. It's kind of sad because they actually did a pretty good job previously. But with that being the case, let's jump down to the maps. And I feel like that kind of tied into my skirmish discussion, because maps have always been Call of Duty's, I guess, Achilles heel, in my opinion. There have been countless videos out there that have talked about Call of Duty map design. I know Ackman has been like dying on that hill, and they've been, people have criticized these maps over the years. There have been some legendary maps in Call of Duty that everyone remembers forever, but there have been some just trash maps that have been around forever. And Black Ops 7 comes out with 16 brand new 6v6 maps with different layouts and themes, 2 large-scale maps in Skirmish, and they also have Nuketown automatically brought in because they can't come up with anything new there. So Nuketown is a tradition. You got to add that thing back in there every year. And they have some solid ones, right? I will say they have some maps out there that are really enjoyable to play, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure. But there are technically 4 return maps that have just been remastered from previous Black Ops games, like Raid, Hijacked, Express, and obviously Nuketown. So with that being the case, does the launch map roster, including the new maps and the new releases, so the new maps and remasters, feel strong? Do they feel balanced? Or are they just kind of like not that good? I mean, I want to get your opinion overall, because I feel like map design is such a key component of multiplayer altogether. And Hockey, I'm going to start with you first. What do you think here?
Yeah, I actually thought the maps, that this was kind of one of the stronger aspects of the game right now. I think they actually work well with the mechanics of this, new Call of Duty, where you obviously have the Omni movement that, has been a little bit fine-tuned, a little slower, and then you have the wall bounce. And, we're going to get into the gameplay a little bit later, but I think the maps, and you can obviously see some of them were literally made to wall bounce part of the map. So I think the maps were, correctly made for this Call of Duty. I think, again, they have some of the ones like Nuketown. They probably could have brought that one in a little bit later, or they could have brought in another one and gave us that one kind of just as an Easter egg. That one, for me, it gets old pretty quick. They could have brought in other ones and remastered a few different ones that I would rather have than Nuketown. But again, I think the maps so far, they're pretty good. They're big enough where, again, you can take advantage of the actual mechanics of this new Call of Duty and use the advantage to jump off the wall or run backwards, jump to the side, the cool mechanics that we do like, and these maps are, I think, made for those mechanics.
Yeah, and Frank, what's your overall opinion? Because I have a lot of stuff I want to say about these maps, but what do you think about? Do you like some maps? Do you despise these maps? What is your overall opinion?
Well, I think it's hit and miss, similar to what I said about the game modes. Some of them I think are strong. I'm a big fan of Scar and Toshin. But I think part of the issue that the maps run into is some of them I think are actually well designed. However, I think spawning has been a big Achilles heel for Call of Duties in the past, and it continues in this one. And I know they're trying to make the spawn where they're trying to avoid people being campers. So they're constantly moving the spawn point for teams back and forth. So, but I do think it's been a little excessive. There are way too many times where you kill somebody and then someone spawned automatically behind you. So like it does feel, I think that's part of the issue with the map. I don't know if it's because the maps are a little bit smaller, but some of them don't feel that small that this should be this big of a problem. But it continues to be one. I think that's one of the biggest issues for the maps is the spawning. That we've seen this issue before. And I think another issue is they create 13 maps, which I think some are hit and miss. I mentioned ones that I really like. But when you go into a game session, a lot of times you're not even playing these new maps, right? Because so many times people are voting and moving towards the remastered ones, the Black Ops 2 map, Nuketown, right? And so there's a lot of times where you're not even really playing a ton of these new maps because a lot of times people get that nostalgic route. They want to go play Hijack. They want to go play Raid and Express, right? So that's, I think, part of the issue is you're not playing a ton of these new maps. Some of them are hit and miss. Some of them are strong. So the spawning, the nostalgia blast that a lot of people enjoy, I think it's hurting the overall experience and why it's hit and miss with these maps.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things I could say here. I mean, I'll start with what I liked. I mean, there's a few maps, like you mentioned, that are strong. I think, obviously, some of the remastered ones have some solid credence. Like, it's okay to bring them back. Like, Black Ops 2's Raid, right, is a good one. I even though, like, yes, it's 3 lanes, but it's a classic. I know where everything is in that map. I played that so many times. Scar, right, same thing. That one's a good one. I do enjoy that. And then you have Toshin, as you mentioned earlier. It's probably the best map because I think each of them has their cool themes behind it. But there's also like these corridors that you find ways to circumvent the groups. I know, like me and Frank played off stream, and we were able to circumvent everybody, dodge everyone, get in the vents, and then get behind the entire team, and we just cleaned everybody. Like, there's ways to avoid combat, to get behind it and really play strategy. But there's a lot of maps that, and I mean, even just looking at the Call of Duty website, like that are all tiny. Like they say, oh, small size, small size. So, and the problem is if your spawns are so broken and each map is tiny, then those are two recipes for disaster. Their spawns are so bad in this game. What just blew me up? He just RPG'd me. What the heck? Yo, he was right behind me. What? Oh, that's where you really have no chance to even breathe or to think or to move forward before you're getting attacked, especially when TTK is really short in this game. It's not the shortest compared to like Modern Warfare 1, I think was the shortest of all time, but they don't have really much time for you to even think of a strategy to get around or to attack an opponent, because sometimes you're getting killed by the same person. I find that whenever I play on Hijacked, or I think it's Blackheart, I believe, Blackheart, I honestly just want to leave. Like those two maps make me want to puke, and I have no problem saying it because they are built to make people angry. And I don't understand why 3-lane maps is the only formula for success in Call of Duty. For some reason, the devs just don't learn how many times you have to, like, it's like how many times to teach this lesson, old man, kind of a thing. I don't get it, but they need to like look to the maps that people most enjoy. Nuketown is one thing. That's just a nostalgia blast. But look to the maps that are medium size at least, and then say, let's think about why people like these maps, rather than just prioritize the miniature maps and just get people just frustrated. And I feel like their maps can be good, but as you mentioned earlier, because the voting system, you're never really playing a lot of new maps, and it tells me that no one likes them, right? If no one's voting for them, then no one likes these new maps. Then you're gonna probably have to go back and remaster all the old maps from all the Black Ops games and Modern Warfare games, because if you can't make new maps that people like, then what are you doing? Right, that's part of the problem. But before we get into the perks, gameplay, and the zombies, make sure you hit that thumbs up and subscribe to support the channel. We have our memberships turned on, and if you want to support the channel, you can join up there for some awesome perks and rewards. And you can also hit this hype button, this brand new thing they added to YouTube, to help these smaller channels as ours grow day by day. So let's jump now into the guns and the gameplay. And I gotta say, the other thing that Call of Duty is most known for is their gameplay component, and obviously the guns is the most important thing for any war game. And at launch, there's 30 weapons total, 23 primaries, 3 pistols, 2 launchers, and 2 melee weapons. And they're all obviously different, the same categories that we're all used to. So there's a lot of different things you can play. They obviously have the return to field upgrades, and they also have a lot of perks and specialties that you also can use to kind of give your character more differences. I think the perks are the biggest change that they've added. The ability now to have, obviously they have 3 different color perks, and then based on those colors that you pick, you then get a specialty perk that then is added based on whether you are 3 of the same color, 2 different colors, or if you decide to pick 3 different ones, which I don't know why people will do, because now you don't get anything that's specialty. So there's a lot of cool things that they added, but they also then made some changes to the gameplay, and that has to do with the movement. The movement is faster than old Black Ops games based on speed, but it's not as chaotic as Modern Warfare speed, as some of those, like even Advanced Warfare, where you're just wall running. So they got rid of the slide canceling, but they also do now have wall jumping, which is a little bit different. So TTK is closer to the Treyarch pacing, but it's not, as I said before, it's not as crazy as it was back in the old day of Modern Warfare, the reboot, right? So a lot of things here, right? So the big question I want us to think about is, do you like this, Black Ops 7's weapon sandbox, this new perk system, the gameplay? Does it feel good? Does it feel skill rewarding? Meaning, like, if you're actually good at the game, do you feel more rewarding if you do know what you're doing? Or does it really just feel imbalanced? Like it's favoring certain guns or certain gameplay feels that we really would want it to be adjusted. So let's go with Haki. What is your opinion here?
Yeah, so far, man, I think this is again a pretty strong aspect of this game. Guns, perks. So far, for me, I think I'm level like 40. So, through and through, all unique guns so far. The attachment's been pretty cool. And look, everything's balanced, but it all comes down to, for me, what guns are actually going to make it into rank. That's a whole nother story, right? If there's only going to be 6 to 8 guns that make it into rank, it's going to be a problem, and this game's going to die pretty quickly. But just as it stands right now, so far, I like the guns. And again, the gameplay as well. The gameplay is pretty good. Good mechanics. Like you said, they did slow it down, but speed it up in some aspects. So I think the wall bounce or wall jump, whatever you want to call it, would be fairly realistic. It's not, like you said, advanced or Infinite Warfare where you are just flying across the map. So I think they did a pretty good job, again, connecting it to the maps. The maps themselves, some maps literally have you wall jumping in certain areas. So I think they've combined a few things together, and again, guns and maps so far, and the gameplay pretty strong for me.
Yeah, so Frank, what is your opinion here?
Yeah, I actually agree on how this is probably the strongest part of the game. The multiplayer experience to me is the guns. The guns feel pretty good. Even though from an amount standpoint, the amount of guns available at launch, they have 30 weapons for Black Ops 7. Black Ops 6 had 33 weapons. And then Modern Warfare 3 had 37 quote-unquote new weapons. So not from a quantity standpoint, the most, but the guns feel, I think, pretty good. And there's a couple guns that I really enjoy. I know a lot of players have, but I think for the most part, they're pretty balanced. I like the Maverick. I like the AK. I know you see a lot of that. And so from the guns perspective, I think pretty solid. From the perks perspective, really strong. I love the hybrid perks, the hybrid skills that you get, mixing two colors together. I do think, and then what is it, 27 perks at launch this time. Black Ops 6 had 16. So you have a strong amount of perks. I think the perks are pretty strong overall. From a gameplay perspective, I think you're seeing a mix of speeds here from Modern Warfare. The last two installments, kind of a mix. To me, that's how my interpretation of it. The wall hopping can get a little frustrating at times, but that's kind of their quote-unquote new innovation here, which you've kind of seen a mix of other stuff, right? Wall running we've seen before, the Omni Moon we see last game. So this is kind of trying to, mixing some of those two things together as the quote-unquote innovation. Is that truly innovative? I don't think so. But again, for me, I think this is one of the stronger aspects, the gun/gameplay, how they kind of mix together in this game.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at the overall kind of gameplay and the guns and perks, the perks are probably the best part. I like the fact that they added this hybrid system, which I think was such a simple thing that I'm surprised that they really haven't done that yet to this point, because it does give you variability in how you play. I do wish they even had more variability, like even if you like, maybe that's something that they could update and add. I do find that some of the perks are kind of, in my opinion, useless in a way. I don't want to sound like disingenuous here, but some of the perks just feel like, why would I ever pick that? Like, that's not going to really give me any benefit. And maybe there's a lot of YouTubers out there that could give you a full breakdown of different builds you can do and stuff like that, like you're doing Elden Ring, Night Rain or something. But I really don't think there is that many perks that give you like that, oh, I can do this combo, and it really does change a lot. I feel like a lot of people stick to the same consistencies of doing things like Assassin, or like you're trying to, do I want to play hidden, be that guy that's not seen by anything, or do you want to be a guy that just has all these guns and bullets? Like I even go on bankroll and Assassin, that gets you like the ability to find people on the map and then get bonus points if you kill them, like just get you kill streaks all the time. Like those are the types of two I've seen more consistently than anything else. But I think field upgrades have actually taken a seat. I don't think they're as good as they were in previous COD games. Like I feel like I've only kind of stuck to the drone mines. Like those are like the best ones to use because they can actually get you kills and they can like attack people, weaken them. All the other ones are kind of just like, they're not that great. Like I feel like in previous COD games, field upgrades actually were a little bit better, right? And I feel like they did take a downgrade here. But I do like the fact that there's so many different weapons, and I agree with you. The Maverick is one of the best guns in the game. It's almost OP to a certain extent. I think they did nerf it a little bit in the first update, but it's still really, really good. I think snipers could be a little bit better. I think people are pretty sweaty with them, but at the same time, it's a COD game. You're gonna get that quite a lot. But movement seems fine. I like the fact that they now made a perk so you can go full sprint rather than that that was the basic mechanic that everybody had. Because now, yes, sliding's outrageous, wall jumping can be outrageous, but you're not doing these mega sprints going 90 miles an hour in every single direction that you could have done in previous games. So the downside, I feel like some of the perks could have been better. And I feel like maybe you could have done more variability with your guns, but other than that, I feel like this is the best category of all of them, to be honest with you. Oh, yes, sir. It's a warship. Okay. Now we're cooking.
This is from our care package?
Yeah.
Dude, I
That's unfortunate for you guys. Oh, no.
Wow.
Oh, my God. And now let's jump into the zombies. And zombies is something that I feel like there is a lot of people that actually just play COD 4 zombies, right? Which means that there's a staple fan base of zombies. And for years, people have been really upset of how zombies has taken a turn for the worst for a while now. And you back in the day, and I feel like I'm an old person saying this, but back in the day, zombies was one of the most fun experiences where you can play with a crew of your friends. World at War obviously had the best original zombies, but then you started having to those other variants of all these cool things you could do that really did change everything up. And I think when they got to the point where they had Warzone zombies is when I saw a lot of people just quitting. Like we all played it online together. It was just, I saw zombies YouTubers just say, you know what, I'm checking out. I think I'm not playing COD this year. And it kind of, playing zombies this year did give me a little bit more of like I remember this feeling of zombies being fun. And they only have 2 zombies maps so far. They did add a bunch of new mini bosses, and you can actually now transfer XP, weapon XP, and multiplayer XP into zombies, which I think can drastically make you fly up levels if you want a prestige as quickly as possible. Which when me and Frank were playing off stream one time, we were flying up. We lasted like a whole boatload of rounds. I forgot the round we got to, but we went up like a bunch of levels, and my weapon went up so much by just playing. But they have all the classic things like Pack-a-Punch and perks and gobble gums and all that stuff. So all these things are all pretty cool, right? And I kind of want to ask you guys, does Zombies launch in a strong replayable state with good maps and systems, or does it feel lacking compared to classic Treyarch Zombies? And I'll start with Frank here. What do you think based on the experiences you've had?
You know, I feel weird just answering the same thing. It's hit and miss. I mean, you come out, I love how they've given you multiple options in zombies, right? They haven't pigeonholed you into, like you said, Warzone zombies. This is how you have to play it, right? They've given you the classic-based round, survival. They've given you the option of kind of maneuvering through a map, like the story like we've seen in previous installments. And then they've given you the arcade version, right? So they've given you multiple options. I think that's a really good thing. Like you mentioned, they brought back some of the key concepts of zombies. So again, though it's all strong too, and we mentioned the guns in the previous thing, like they have some strong guns that feel pretty good to use. However, 3 maps, right? One for the arcade, one for the round-based, one for the survival. And I know that they've told you maps are coming from DLC, but at launch, 3 maps, it just feels like, again, they kind of shortchanged it a little bit. There's some strong concepts here, but then you shortchange it with the amount of options of maps that you have. So that to me is kind of a big downer for Zombies on some of the core stuff that they brought back and giving you variability by allowing you to play different kind of modes for Zombies. So that's the unfortunate part for me.
Yeah, Haki, what's your opinion here?
Yeah, so I've never graded Zombies, but over the years, like you mentioned, they kind of, pushed Zombies into its own franchise. A little bit smaller on scale than Warzone. But then, like you said, they actually put them into Warzone, which killed the vibe a little bit. But they brought it back to home with this Zombies. I thought they did a pretty good job. They have a couple different modes as well, which is pretty interesting. A curse mode, which is kind of an old school Zombies, where you start off with a pistol. And like Frank mentioned, they have a couple good guns, and and you mentioned it as well. They have the old school stuff, Pack-a-Punch and things like that. But Frank mentioned as well, man, they really messed up on the maps. They only have 2 maps, and they only have 3 maps. Not a lot of maps at launch. Again, if they want to make it like a franchise, they definitely have to come with a lot more. Now, again, I'm not huge into Zombies, but this is definitely a squad a squad game for me. If I'm not really playing with the squad, or if I'm not playing with friends, this can get very boring very quickly. So they have to add stuff. They have to add more maps. They have to add more bosses. And if they do that, I think it could be something that they want it to be, which they're shooting for it to be its own franchise.
Well, you know what it is? I had a lot of fun playing survival in the zombies mode, because that reminded me of the closest to what I remember growing up with. But I then look back and I look at it and I say there's a lot of flaws with their zombie system that they put in place. The first biggest flaw is that you're really drifting away from what the original intention that the developers had for zombies, where you're building up your bases, you're putting up the wood on the walls to prevent zombies from attacking and slowing them down to then combat against them. And they got rid of that completely, and they have it now where zombies are all over the place and they're just chasing you the entire time. And that's the basic mode, the standard one. And yes, it's a cool thing that you get to travel around these maps, and there's all these different zombies, and there's a whole story that now you're building into it. And you got to find all your stuff and everything. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. They had that in Black Ops 2, right? That they did have that original intention there, but you do kind of miss out on the basic gameplay of survival and planning out, moving through different parts, finding where the mystery box is going to be, finding where all these things are going to be, because they're all scattered right in different parts. And the survival game mode is fun, but everything's there. Like, yes, you have to buy the door, right? And it's there, but it never goes away. There's never really like a certain point where like, oh no, we just lost the mystery box. I gotta go find it now. And that's a whole part. You have to go further into the base to get to that next part to unlock it. Everything's there. So, and on top of that, even the pack-a-punch, like, I always miss, I actually love where you put the gun into the pack-a-punch and it makes it into something new, and it makes it some outrageous weapon that's just different than what it was before. It has some crazy name attached to it. But when you do it now, it just changes color. It changes, oh, it's an orange gun now, or it's a green gun, or it's blue. Like, that doesn't do anything for me. That doesn't make me feel like, oh, this is some cookie gun that it changed into now. And you lose a lot of that fun parts of it. It's now shifted. It's just like a paper, cookie cutter, basic version of zombies. And yes, it's better than what it was as Warzone zombies, where we're talking about flaming garbage, right? So yes, it's better than flaming garbage, but is not as good as what it could have been. And so with that being the case, let's now jump into our galactic grade, or our final verdicts. And when I look at Call of Duty's multiplayer, right, I like to always try to compare myself to previous games. And the best way to do that is looking at Black Ops 6. Black Ops 6, as much as, and I made a whole video about how the story was the best COD game we've had in probably 10 years, the multiplayer was relatively enjoyable to play. I say enjoyable, really sweaty, but enjoyable to play for a decent amount of time. And there are things where I did get annoyed, and we did stop playing it, obviously, and that had a lot to do with ranked. But the fact is that the game itself had a lot of good maps, it had good gameplay components, it had perks, it had all these things that basic COD should have. And I feel like this was a downgrade. This was it went worse than what it was last year. Yes, it's better than like Modern Warfare 3, but we're talking about Modern Warfare 3, which is flaming garbage, right? It's you can't really make that comparison. So when I'm looking at this, it has some good parts, it has some bad parts, but I'm giving this a 6. I think that's exactly what this game feels to me. It has some things that are redeemable. It has things that you can definitely make the score go up. I think ranked is going to be a big indicator to me whether this game is going to be long lasting, because if they fumble ranked like they've done for the past few years, then I really don't think people are going to want to play this for a long duration of time. Unless you really just go hard in the paint and you make a lot more maps that are various ways you can play. Skirmish needs a lot of work. Zombies needs a lot of work. You need a lot of work here. So do I think it's a basic thing that you can, if you have Game Pass, you can try it out and see? You could, but I would not pay $70 for this game right now, right? If that was my overall, if I was paying for this myself. So in my opinion, 6, it needs a lot of work. Let's see what happens with ranked. That's where I'm sitting at. So Hockey, what is your galactic grade? And should we buy this now, later, or not at all?
Yeah, so I'm with you definitely in the aspect of not spending $70. At least right now, no shot. If you have Game Pass, obviously, take a look at it. Look, like I said, there are some good, there are some bad. I think the maps are pretty good. I think the guns are good, but some of the modes are hit and miss for me. Even some of the maps are a little bit hit and miss. But for me, and I've said this for a very long time, and every single COD I've been all over this. It's all about ranks for me. When I go and I play alone, and even with you guys, most of my time is I'm playing a ranked game. So the guns, they have to be in ranked. If the guns are not ranked, the game will die very, very quick, just like the last couple of CODs. You said Black Ops 6, that's been the one that was enjoyable. It had good movement. This one, again, it's got that movement, it's got extra movement now, you got the wall bounce, so it's got some good potential to be a good COD. They have to skill ranked. If they miss ranked, it's going to be one of the worst things that they can do. Listen, they have competition now, right? They have Battlefield. They're going up against Battlefield. They're going up against Arc Raiders, Marvel Rivals. There's actual competition now. So I am sitting a little bit higher than you, Mars. I am at a 7.3. I'm not going to Halo Infinite this. I'm not going to be like, yo, this has got the craziest potential. It's going to be an 8. It's going to be a 9. No, I'm sticking at a 7.3. We can come back to this after ranked comes out, see how many guns are in there, and go from there. But 7.3, I am at a do not spend $70 on it right now, but Game Pass, definitely check it out.
And Frank, what's your Galactic grade? And should we buy this now, later, or not at all?
Yeah, I'm pigeoning same talking points you guys have. It's very hit and miss. Some things are strong, right? I mentioned the perks I liked. I like the guns, some of the maps, and then some of the misses, right? The skirmish game mode was a bit disappointing for me. Some of the spawning in the maps have been pretty bad. And then falling a little bit short on zombies when it comes to the options for maps that are available. I just think part of it also is that there's a COD fatigue. I mean, Hakeem mentioned there's actual competition here. So people are looking for ways to play first-person shooters, and for Arc Raiders, they're filling in some of that Warzone itch. Right, so you have multiple games that you're competing against, and we're seeing that in the sales, at least from the Europe standpoint, is down over 50% from Black Ops 6 to this year, the Metacritic score, and I think part of that is the story, and I know Marge, you're going to do a separate video about the story, but you're seeing not high critic scores, you're seeing not high sales scores, and for me, this has kind of been the most least interested I've been in a COD game in a while, and I just think they're falling into that issue where they have to put out a game every year. It's hard to be super innovative year after year, especially with game development becoming harder to get games out sooner. And so I understand. I don't want to give them a big pass because it's all about greed. They could take a year off and then build a DLC and then have an off year so that they can come back stronger, but they don't want to do that because of the money. And I think they're running into that kind of issue where there's some COD fatigue from people. Not saying this is falling off a cliff. We've seen this before, right? Vanguard was like the death of COD and they came back, right? But this feels like they're up against some serious competition. This is not their strongest thing, most innovative game, and this is what you're seeing. It's very hit and miss. I'm at a 7, a flat 7. I am at a not buy now, but if you have Game Pass, if you're a diehard COD fan, you're buying this anyway, unfortunately. But for kind of the casual fans, I'm not seeing a lot of reasons why to pick this up and play it. And for me, it's not one of the top reasons for me to want to play a multiplayer game right now. It's not in the top 3 for me. So that's where I'm at. I'm at a buy later at a 7 flat.
Yeah, you know what? I really do feel that they need to take a break, and I thought that would be something that they could even attempt to do when the Microsoft deal went through, and clearly they didn't, right? Because they could see the dollar bills, and you're not going to get rid of that, right? So we'll see what happens. I think this is, they stuck with Black Ops again because they said, hey, Black Ops has been more consistent than Modern Warfare because of the garbage that they've been funneling for that game franchise. So they said, well, what happens when you make Black Ops 7 this bad? What are you going to do now? You got to come up with something new, right? We'll find out. But before you head out, if you like this breakdown, make sure you drop a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on the next video that we have. I'm working on a full review and breakdown the entire campaign, so make sure you stay tuned to that. It's going to be a big one, and I'm going to make sure that we jump into all the crazy stuff that happens to that game. But until then, If you want something to watch, check out some of the newest videos on the channel. It's right here on the screen, at the end screen that you'll see in a moment. Make sure you go do that. But until next time, this is Marsman signing off. Game on.